Microsoft Access is one of the hardest Office applications to learn. So in this exercise, we're going to just hit the nuts and bolts of what needs to be done to be successful in your assignment. And I think after a period of time here, you will see that Access it requires more time than what's delivered in this assignment. So what I want you to do is open up Microsoft Access 2010 on your screen. And when you open it, the first thing you're going to see is this screen here. And we're going to double click on blank database. And this will prepare us to start entering in our data for the database. And what we're going to do for this assignment is just create a simple address book. So we're going to take a look at our fields here. And again, just like Excel, we have cells, and we have columns, and we have rows. And here you'll see the star, which represents the current field or the new record that you're creating. So, but what we need to do is to come over and put in our other information. And we're going to do this a little old school. Yes, I can click here to add a new field. But what I want you to do is I want you to see the way we used to do it, because I think you'll understand how we do it today a little bit better by seeing the little old school. So what we're going to do is go up to Views, and we're going to go to Design View. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to name this here, and so we need to give our table a name, and let's just name it Contacts, and say OK. Now you'll notice here we have a few things that we're looking at. This is our area where it will show us all the tables. Likewise, it will show us our forms, our reports, macros, anything that we've created in the database will show up in this area right here. So we want to make sure that we understand what this is about. And if you're going to jump from one to another, you'll need to close out one to go to the other, because sometimes it'll say you need to close this before you can do that. So it's just always easy just to be able to close and then move into something else. But anyway, first thing we see here is we see a key, we see an ID, and it's set to auto number. This key here means primary key. So the data here in this field needs to be unique to this contacts table. Okay, now you might ask, well, what does it mean to be unique? Well, for example, you have a social security number. That would be unique to you because you are the only person in the world that has that social security number. Now, to put it on a smaller scale, in your database, you're going to have a person have an ID, whether it be auto ID, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But let's say that you make a family member here, you create a new contact, and you give them an ID of 1. They will always be number 1. So you're not going to have two family members have a ID number of 1. So what we're going to do is go ahead and leave this as is, and we're just going to come down. And what we're going to do is we're going to break our contacts database down, and this is what we call normalization. You need to remember that, normalization. We're breaking things down to its lowest factor. So for example, I'm going to put in here first name, and we can make that just a regular text field. Now since we're here, I'm going to go ahead and click on this. We can have a number field, a date field, or currency, yes, no. So, if you have this right here, we'll create a checkbox. OLE is object linking and embedding. So this is if you want to put a photograph of the person that you're creating this contact for, that's what the OLE, object linking and embedding, is there. A hyperlink, so again, you can put a link to a website. An attachment, so if you want to have a PDF attached or anything else, or if you want the actually a person to be able to upload a file, that's what that would be for. Now, lookup wizard here, this is kind of a nice field because let's say that we have a product database here, and we have, let's say we're selling t-shirts. Well, you might have asked questions. For example, what color t-shirt do you want? So you can create up a lookup wizard for that and then put in the colors. You may also say how or what size shirt do you want? Well, here you can create a lookup wizard for large, medium, small, extra large, and so forth. So that's what the lookup wizard is for. And I use this a lot, and we will use it here in this database. For example, the state of the address. Well, instead of having someone type it in, you can actually have them just click on it by putting in the states. But we're going to create a couple of lookup wizards here, but most of what we're going to create is just text, lookup wizard, and so forth. So anyway, we have their first name. The reason we do that is because we want to be able to sort our data, for example, by last name. For example, if I had if I worked for the county and I wanted to look up some residents in the county, I might say, okay, I want to see everybody in a certain district or a certain ward. So I could say, show me everybody in the first ward with last name Smith. So again, that's why we want to do that. We are going to need address, and that this field here is going to signify address line 1. We can also have address. Let's make this address 2. Make this address 1. And this will be address line 2. Now, everything that I'm doing here, you need to do in your database and submit it for grading. So please follow along with everything. And I've noticed some of you guys in the past exercises are not really watching the videos. You're just trying to create a document and send it in. And you notice that's why you're only getting 50 points out of, or 50% of the points possible. And at any time you ever want to redo your work, resubmit it, I'll regrade that work. So address line 1, line 2. So we're going to put in your city, state, zip code. Now this is a contacts database, so we might need to have home phone, cell phone, and email address. All right, now some things that we can do is like right here, email address, we can put some what we call validation on this. So for example, we want to make sure that a person enters in an email address. All right, so if we click here, we can come down to the bottom, and you'll notice that the field size is set to 256 characters. And if you want to make your database efficient and last a long time, you really want to pay attention to field sizes. So for example, how long of an email address might you enter in for someone? Now this is always modifiable, but to give it a good start, I might say 30, because really we don't know. I mean, there might be some domain names out there that are really long. So for example, scott@networksolutions.com. I mean, I don't know how many characters that is, but anyway, I think that'll fall within the 30. So anyway, now here, validation rule. We're going to click in this box. Notice we get a little button here that'll take us to validation. And I'm going to hit cancel there, come down to the next one. And validation text, validation rule. All right, let's skip the validation there because I really didn't want to write that. I just basically want to do it. So for example, let me show you here. And let's make this a number, and we're going to go to validation rule, and we are going to, let's do cancel. Oh, I apologize. Instead of a validation rule, we're going to use input mask. So again, a validation will verify that it's either a phone number or an email. So if someone forgets to put an @ symbol in, it's not going to do that. But what we're going to do is we're going to create an input mask. All right, so an input mask is just going to ensure that the person puts the number in the correct way. And again, with the input mask, if I click here, I'm going to come up and choose number. So let's save this table. And go back to input mask. You must save the table first. Save now. The input mask only works with text. Okay, so that's a good sign to see. Let's make that a text field. And let's go back to input masks, and we're going to click on phone number. And you can see right there. I'm going to do it next. And what we're going to see is this code for now. So do a next and just do a finish. All right? So this is going to be an input mask. Now what happens is when someone goes to enter data here, it's just going, all you have to do is put in 304, 694, 4991. It will automatically put the parentheses, the space, and the dash in for you automatically. So again, this is what we call input mask. And we can do the same thing for this number. And we're going to say phone. Next, and simply just do a finish. All right, now email address here, it's text. Let's put an input mask, and we are going to say email. And again, it doesn't default to an email address, and I don't want to write the code for that. So let's just go ahead and do a finish, and I'm going to do a control. Actually, just take this out and delete that. All right, now again, that's input masks, so please remember that. You will see that on a test. You will also see validation on a test. If you don't know what those mean, please look those up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a look at my field sizes here. So first name, I obviously do not need 255 characters, so I'm just going to set it to 20. My last name, I'm going to set it to 30. Again, a little larger than what I need. However, I'm just looking to create an efficient, fast-running database. And again, the first 2 or 3 months in working with your database, it's not going to be a problem. But after 2 or 3 years, where you've got hundreds, maybe thousands of names into a database, it's going to be a little large, which you probably won't get with this exercise. But all right, so the address, I'm going to make this 50. Address line 2, we'll make this 50. City, we'll make this 20. State, obviously, we only need 2 for that. And zip code, we only need, let's do 12 there. And home phone, let's do 30. And cell phone, 30. And email address is 30 as well. Now, if you take a look at someone's phone number, 304 366 9272. If you add up the numbers there, you'll notice that there's 10 characters. But you also have to include the parentheses, so that gives us 12. And you also have to include the dash, that's 13. And you'll need to include the space between the parentheses 304 and the number. So that gives you a total of 14 spaces. So if I were to come up to, say, a phone number, and I wanted to optimize that fully, I might say 14 total. Okay, so anyway, this gives us an idea of what our database might look like. Now, I mentioned that we would do a lookup wizard, so let's do that with the state field. What I'm going to do here is click here and change that to lookup wizard, and I want to look up the field, I want the lookup field to get the values from another table or query, or I will type the values that I want. So I'm just going to say type the values that I want, hit next, and now I can actually put in the values that I want. So let's put in here California. Let's put in here Ohio. Let's put in Oklahoma and West Virginia. And again, you can go in and put in all the states that you want that you think that will pertain. But in a field like this, you probably want to put them all in. So now we do this for a couple reasons. For example, if someone were to type in California, will they put CA in uppercase or lowercase? So it's for data integrity and the way the database looks and for cleaning everything up. It's best to always let a person choose what goes into a field. So we'll just hit next here, and we'll call that state and finish. All right, so anyway, this is enough information to get our database started. We can put a lot more information in here. So, for example, I can put birthdays and anniversary dates and things like that. But for this assignment, I just want you to see how to build a simple database. So anyway, this gives you enough information here. All right. So now I'm going to go back up to View and just click on View and go to Datasheet View. Save it. And you'll notice up here we have first name, last name, address, city, state, and zip. Now, this is a table, and tables are not used for data entry. They are basically used for storing the information. And we can input data into this table by using what we call forms. Forms are important because it makes life more easy, because it's more efficient, and the form is just a lot better to work with than using actually tables. But in order to get our database to filter out the information correctly, the next step in creating a table or creating a database here is to work with queries. So if you go up here to Home, and let's go to Create, If you were to follow this screen from left to right, you'll notice that it starts with tables. Okay, here is tables. I want to create a table. That's going to store our data. The next thing that we have is queries. This is going to allow us to sort our data. For example, we want our queries to be sorted by last name. Now, after we get this set up, we're going to create a form based on this query. And this form is for data entry to put information into this table. We only have one table, we only have one source of information, but we don't want to use tables. Tables are cumbersome and hard to maneuver around and everything. That's what forms, it just makes life a lot easier. Once we get the form created and we're able to input data in, then we can jump over to reports. And reports are simply a way to print out information, and you're going to create a report with that. The one last thing we're going to do is create a macro, and I'm going to show you what macros are when we get to it. But anyway, if you want to create a database, just simply follow this screen across and it will help you. So first thing we did was create a table. Now I'm going to go and click on Query Wizard. And when the wizard comes up, it's going to ask us, do we want to create a wizard? And we're just going to use a simple query wizard. We want to use the contacts table, which is right here. And we're going to use all the fields in that table. Okay, so I just moved them over to here, hit next, and what title do you want to give it? And notice it says contacts query. I like having the word query there because it will let me know that I'm actually working on a query, and it lets me know where I'm pulling the data from. And when you've got a big database, it's you'll see that the flow of the titles really makes a big difference. So I'm just going to hit finish. Now you'll notice that the query here looks just like the table. So I'm going to click on table, click on query, except when I click up here and let's close out this table, and we have query. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to edit our query. And what we're going to tell the database to do is to sort every person in the database by their last name. And we have contacts query. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on it and then go to design view. And you'll see that there's a couple different ways to get to design view, but this is it. And you can see here's our table that we're working with, and these are the fields. So if you click right here, sort, come over to last name, and I want to say ascending. All right, so now what I can do is just close out this database, this query, save changes, yes. So now we have a table and a query. And now what I'm ready to do is to create my form so that I can input data into it. So we're going to create, let's go to Forms, and I'm going to go to Form Wizard. Right, so you can create a blank form and do all this manually if you'd like, but it is a little difficult. So I am going to use the Form Wizard. Now, what you can do is just use the Form tool, and the Form tool will lay out everything for you. Now, for this, let's just say for this exercise, let's just use this form button here. So if I were to click on contacts or contact query, you got to make sure that you're on this query before you click on this button, because this form button is going to create a form that lets you enter information for one record, and it's going to use whatever query or whatever you're on, a table or a query. So let's click here and then click on form, and you'll see that the database creates a really nice form for us. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that out and save changes, and contacts query form is the name of the file. Now I know I have a form here. It's based on a query that's based on the contacts table. So let's go ahead and do it, okay? And you can see here I now have a table, I have a query, and I have a form. If I double click on the form, I'm ready to enter in data. Now here on the ID, we know that that's the primary key. And primary keys, you never enter in data here. If you just hit Tab, and when I start typing a name here, for example, I can put in Mark, you notice that the primary ID automatically generates 1. It's creating a record number 1 for Mr. Mark here. So Mark Smith, 223 West Main Street, Salem, West Virginia, and 26426 is phone number. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hit numbers, put in 304, 326, 1264. And again, that's because we did the input mask on that. Okay, now that's my home phone. and 304-326-1471. And my email address will be scar@salem.edu. Now, if I hit tab again, notice it'll automatically take me to the next record, which is what I want to do is bring you down to the bottom here and let you see this. This button here will take me to my very first record. This button here, notice the line, there's a wall there, will take me to my very last record. And obviously I can walk back and forth one record at a time by using these. Now when I'm ready to come in here and create a new record, I can click on the arrow with the star, and that's going to take me to a very blank next record. So what I want you to do is put in at least 5 names. So okay, so now you can see down here at the bottom, we are on our third record. I can go to our second record, and I can go to our first record. So anyway, you now have data in your form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and click on Contacts. You can see we have 2 records, and we have Mark Smith and Sally Mae, records 1 and 2. And now Mark will always be number 1, and Sally will be number 2. Right, so let's take and close that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the query. You'll notice that 2 is first because we are sorting in ascending order by last name. So Sally Mae is first, Mark Smith is second. Close that. Now if we come back and let's go ahead and close this form, and I double click on this query, you'll notice that Sally Mae comes first again because this form is generated off of the query where it has the person's last name coming first. So, and again, that way if you want to, if you have 10 records here and you got a last name that starts with a Z, well, you'd probably be pretty sure that it's the very last record, so you can always just jump to the last record by using your navigation down here. Okay, now what we're ready to do is to generate a report. Again, because in the form we use the query, we're going to do the same thing for the report because we want our report to spit out in alphabetical order. So let's click on Query. Let's go to Create. We are on Reports, and I'm just going to click on the Report button. Okay, now here, notice it gives us the ID, first name, last name, and this here, you notice our dash lines, it probably won't print very well. Matter of fact, this prints over 3 different pages just for one record. Nobody wants to run through 3 different pages for one record. So let's go ahead and close this report. We don't want to save it. And I can go ahead and close this form. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the report wizard. And here's the contacts query, which again, I've got the table and the query I can choose from, but we always choose the query. I'm going to pull everything over. And I'm going to hit next. And do you want to add any grouping levels? Which at this point we don't want to do any grouping. We're just going to hit next. Do we want to sort this information? Which we could, but we already know that our information is not particular by last name. So to sort it isn't necessary. So let's just hit next. And this is where we want to work on the design. So I could do columns, which is what the other report did for us, and it didn't look very well. So we can do tabular. Again, you can see how it's going to look here. It's not going to look very good, and it is going to span over 3 pages. Or we can say justified. So you can see it's going to bunch everything up in a section here on one page, and we can switch it to landscape to see how that's going to look. And let's go ahead and do it by landscape. And adjust the field width so that all fields fit on a page. We don't want to, again, have 2 pages worth spanning across 2 pages. We want one record to be on the first page. And we're hoping that we might get 4 or 5 records on one page. So let's go ahead and do hit next. Contacts, query, report. and finish. And this is what comes up. Now, likewise, if we wanted to on our report, we can go to View, go to Design View, and we can put in Professor Carr's address. You got them right. And close that out. I can tighten this up right here so that we don't have as much space on there. Okay, now once we do that, we can come back up to the top and go back to our report view. We were in design view. Let's go back to report view. And this is what it would look like on paper. So if you hit print, you'll have your name at the top. And again, you can center this, you can change the colors, you can modify this information. You know, for example, you know, like the ID. 2 is next to Sally. And so to make this look a little bit better, let's just do one more thing that I want you to do. Let's go up to View, Design View, and here you have the ID, title, and this is where the actual data resides. Okay. So I'm going to go back up to Home, and I'm going to hit Center. First name, Center. Now you can do these one at a time, but what if you want to, if you hold the Shift key down, I'm going to click on last name. Well, okay, without holding the Shift key, I'm going to click there. Now I'm ready to select my next item. So I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and I'm going to click on City, State, Zip, Home, Cell, Address, and let's slide over a little bit. Address line 2, and email. Now we can see a difference here. A problem. Email is not very long, so I'm just going to bring. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do Control C, and what I'm going to do now is do a center. Click off of it, click in here by itself. I'm going to reel this over, and I'm going to bring email over. And likewise, I'm going to bring email back over to here. Cell phone, I need to bring it back to there. Okay, now we're going to go back and look at our report view, and you can see now our email address shows up in one total section. If you need more space here, all we got to do is, you'll notice that this can be shortened quite a bit. And if you need more space for your email address, all you got to do is just edit those fields. All right, so here's record number 2, record number 1, but you'll notice that everything is in order by last name. Okay. Now, again, that's creating a report. So we've done everything from creating the table, looking at field sizes, field types. Okay, you want to be familiar with the field types. You will be tested on field types. So go through those and take a look at what they are and write them down. Best thing to do is just write them down, like text field, number field, currency field, object embedding, and so forth. Write those down, and you know, as you're watching this video, you may want to take notes first, and then go back and then do as I do in the video for your assignment to help you with your test. All right, now the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this database. Now what I'm going to do is go to create, and I want to create a macro. Now the name of this macro, well, let's just do this. What we want our database to do is we want it to open up the form every time we load the database. We don't necessarily need to go to the table. We don't need to look at our query because it's done. We don't need to look at the report until we actually need it. But what we need to do is, and generally why you come here is to be able to look up data or add data. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a contacts query form. So we're going to come down to forms, and you will see that in open form. So here in the form name, you don't need to type anything. You want to say open up the contacts query form, and you're going to view it in a normal window. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, once I've got that, I'm just going to close it. And do you want to save it? Yes. And you want to save it as AutoExec. AutoExec. That's all you got to do is save it and say OK. Now you'll notice over here we have a new AutoExec. Macro, to understand what a macro does, in this instance, whenever we open up our database, it's going to execute this command. This is a command. It's the same thing as you coming in and double-clicking on form. Notice when I double-click that, it opened it up. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look and see how our macro works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close out my database. And if you go to your documents folder, you should have a database here. It could be called database 1 in case you weren't paying attention on the file name when you saved it. I saved my database as contacts. Okay, so it will automatically save it in the documents folder. So if I double click on contacts, you'll notice it will open up my database, and this autoexec executes, and it automatically loads my form. And I'm now ready to enter data or search for data in my database. All right, so this concludes this assignment, and what I want you to do is to create a database identical to this assignment here, and then upload it to the Dropbox.